everyone, I'm Michaela Kathleen, and in this video I'm going to be tier ranking maps in books. I love a good book map. So jumping right in, the tiers are icon, informative, acceptable, illegible, and wish it had a map. And these are for the books that I so wish that we had a map. So jumping right into the rankings, the first map we have, I thought I would start off with an acceptable map, a nice baseline. We have the map of Finburn from Three Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. Now this, of course, is a beautiful map. It looks very pretty, but it's kind of hard to tell where the island is and where the ocean is. It's a little hard to read, and I'm a big proponent of maps being legible. So even though it's very beautiful, I had to put it in acceptable because it is a little hard to read. Next we have the City of Ember, which this map is not particularly beautiful like the map of Finburn, but it is very easy to read and very detailed, and so I put this one in the informative category. And finally, moving up to our first icon map, my number one favorite map in any book, we have The Land of Allegagia from The Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini. This is the map that made me love maps in books. I just so enjoy tracking Eragon's journey on this map. I think this map looks really nice. It doesn't have all the fun, beautiful details that Finburn does, but I like that because it makes the map very readable, and like I said, I love tracking Eragon's journey. So this one to me is just the perfect balance of detail, but not making itself so detailed that it's hard to find things or hard to read. So I love this map. Next up, we have our first book that doesn't contain a map, but I so wish that it did, and that is The Prophecy of the Stones by Flavia Bujor. This is a fantasy novel that is not super well known. It was written by a 13-year-old girl, but it's actually surprisingly pretty good. I mean, there are parts where you can tell that it was written by a younger author, but it's still, to me, pretty good. And yeah, growing up, I just so wished that this book had a map so that I could track the journey of our three main characters. I wished it so deeply that I actually drew maps for it myself. Next we have another acceptable map, and that is the map from Inkheart by Cornelia Funk. It is actually from the third book, and this map, I don't know, just doesn't have a lot of locations on it. One of my favorite things about maps is tracking characters' journeys. So if there's not a lot of locations, it's not as fun to me because it's not as like interactive. Like I'm not always flipping back to see where the characters are at. But it is pretty. It gives a nice feel of like elevation. Like you can tell that the land is going upward, which is kind of cool. So there are details that I like to this one, but nothing that puts it over the top into icon, and I feel like it doesn't have enough locations to be considered super informative. Next, we have The Land of Salok from The First Girl Child, which this is a very clean map, which I like. It looks nice, but once again, there's not a lot of locations on it. When I read this book, characters will be in specific locations, and this map only has like very overarching ideas of where things are. So again, it's not one where it's like fun to track the character's journey or anything. So while I like how clean it looks, it's also just definitely not an icon and not super informative. Next we have The Land of Bayern from The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale, and this map to me is a little bit boring. There's not a whole lot going on. It's certainly not my favorite map to look at, but it does have some interesting informative nuggets in it that most books don't, in that it actually has the character's journey on it and tells you how long each leg of the journey takes, so that's kind of fun. So I decided to put this one in informative for that reason. Next, we have what I think is going to be a controversial one. It is Westeros from the Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. And I think these maps have too much going on. I get why they have so much going on, but it's too much, and it's stretched over 2 different pages, which I really do not like. Although it at least has the nice break. It's not like it's actually stretched over the crack of 2 pages. We have a map on the list that is like that. It's not great. So I appreciate that it's at least split, but still, it's just too busy for me personally, and to me it becomes hard to even find things on the map. It's such small type. I don't appreciate it, so I put it in acceptable. I know a lot of people would probably put this one in icon. But next we do have an icon, and that is The Land of Elyon by Patrick Carman. This is another one that I think is not like super well known, probably more well known than The Prophecy of the Stones, but this map, come on, this map is beautiful. This island, the shape of the island, the way the wall splits things up, such a fun map to watch the character's journey, such a pretty map, such unique, interesting details in this map compared to any of the other maps. This one for me is an icon. Next we have another book that I wish dearly had a map, and that is Uglies by Scott Westerfeld. I would love to track Tally's journey on this map, and I realize Uglies just takes place in a futuristic some part of America, but still, I feel like there could still be interesting things done with the map, especially the part where Tally's following the directions to go try to find this secret place. If we had a map of those directions, we could watch her go across all the clues that she has to go through, and I think that would be super fun. Next, we have our one and only illegible map in this tier ranking, and that is the map from The Lost World, which is the sequel to Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. And yeah, this is the map that is stretched over 2 pages, and like, it's not 2 separate parts of the land, it's just all stretched over the crack of the book, which is just terrible. And then also just the printing. I mean, I have, maybe my book is kind of not the best version of this map, but it's bad. In fact, I would like to show it off in the actual book so you can see what I'm talking about, because obviously the picture doesn't show how it appears in the book. But yeah, this is what we've got to work with. It's terrible. Illegible. Next, we have The Last Book in the Universe, another dystopian that probably just takes place in America, but I would still love to have a map. And this is another not super well-known book. But in this book, most of the land is run by gangs, and it's in really bad shape. And then there's Eden, where genetically improved people live. And so I just think it would be interesting, again, to be able to track the character's journey, because our main character is on a journey first to try to go find his sister, and then try to save his sister, and I would love to track that journey on a map. Next, we have Downsiders by Neal Shusterman. I think one of his lesser known earlier books that is a childhood favorite for me. And this book takes place under New York City, and so we have a map of, you know, underneath New York City. I don't think it's accurate, probably. But this map is interesting. It's got an interesting style compared to other maps. It looks kind of grimy and underground, which is cool. But at the same time, it's not one where I'm like obsessively tracking our character's journey, which is kind of my favorite part of maps, if that hasn't become clear. And so for me, this one is just acceptable. Next, we have The Hunger Games, another dystopian that just takes place in America, but that I would still love to have a map for, to just specifically show where the districts are and things like that. Which, of course, this one has a lot of fan-made maps, but that does not count. But yeah, it's kind of like the meme where, like, in your head you're imagining the districts just all in a straight line, and that's definitely not how it is. And so it would be nice to have a map. Next, we have New Prentisstown from the Chaos Walking trilogy, which, much like Inkheart, this map only appears in the 3rd book, and I tend to like maps better that stick through the whole series. And also, this map is just kind of meh to me, like, it's okay. It's certainly not illegible, but it's kind of the only map where I'm like, did we really need a map? And so this one for me is just acceptable, because it's just there. Next, we have the map from the original Warriors series by Aaron Hunter, and I always loved these maps. I loved getting to see where each of the different clans of cats lived, and again, tracking the characters' journeys. I just really loved these maps growing up, and so these, for me, are definitely icon. And of course, Warriors The New Prophecy series also comes with a map, which unfortunately I couldn't find just a black and white image of the map. I could only find one that showed where all the different clans live. But I actually might like this map even better than the original Warriors series map. I like the big lake in the center. I like the moon pool up in the corner. To me, this map was just more interesting than the first map. So it is, of course, also an icon. The next, moving on, the last book that I wish had a map is Peter Pan, which, of course, the original book does not come with a map, but luckily Disney has provided us with something a lot more concrete than just the Hunger Games fan-made maps. I would count the Disney version of the Neverland map to be official. And so in that case, it is iconic. Love Neverland, love the map of Neverland. Beautiful. And then finally we have Middle-earth from Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, which I have never read Lord of the Rings, and so I don't have this like special connection of remembering following the characters' journeys like I do in The Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini. One thing that I don't love about the Middle-earth map is the way that the names of things are stretched across the area in which they exist. To me, that makes it a little bit hard to read, and I don't like it when maps are hard to read, but still, I mean, clearly this one is an icon, whether I have a connection to it or not, and whether I like how the words are set up or not. So, Middle-earth map might not quite be an icon for me personally, but it is an icon. And yeah, that was it for my book map tier ranking. Let me know down below some of your favorite book maps, if you agree or disagree with any of my rankings. I hope you enjoyed watching. Remember, words matter.